A mind-blowing trip. A 25I-NBOMe trip report by Schmerz, posted to earwid.org, October 19th, 2023. I was quite new to psychedelics when this trip occurred. I tried a nice dose of LSD, only to the point where we laughed a lot and freaked out over trees, etc. I'd also tried MDMA occasionally on weekends and mushrooms. Prior to this trip, I'd been in hospital for a surgery on my sinuses. I was in hospital for 4 days to recover. During the 4 days, a really close friend at the time, Jess, thought it'd surprise me when I got out of hospital with some LSD. The day I got back from hospital, Jess rocked up at my door that afternoon around 1 PM. He handed me 2 tabs and we agreed to take only one that night and save another for a few months later. Jess is the type of guy that would rather trip alone, and he had more experience than me when it came to psychedelics, so I trusted him. He advised me that I should try a trip alone, so I thought, why not? Around 2:30 PM, only an hour and a half later that day, I was chilling in my room playing games on my PC. I decided, why not just drop a tab now? I'll order out for dinner so I don't have to face my parents too much during the trip, which they were completely unaware of. I put the tab under my tongue and immediately it was so bitter and gross. I called up Jess, tab still in my mouth. "Bro, this tab tastes like shit, right?" He hadn't taken it yet, so he says to me, "I had dirty hands from work when I touched the tabs. That's probably why it tasted like that." He works on a farm, so I thought it made sense at the time, and we had no idea what NBOMe even was. About 10 minutes after taking the so-called LSD, I looked at the mirror on my wardrobe, and I felt gross looking at myself. I was quite confident with how I look usually. However, only 10 minutes after taking the tab, I felt disgusted at myself for no reason in particular. I felt dirty. About 20 minutes in, I'd lost perception of time. I still wasn't visually hallucinating, however I just had some gut feeling that it was almost night time. All I was doing for this 20 minutes was playing games. I ended my round on Call of Duty and decided to drop another one because in my mind, it felt like it had been hours since I swallowed the tab and I wasn't feeling much. This one was also bitter, but I pushed through and kept playing my games. It was probably around 3:30 to 4 PM that day. I started feeling really fast, energized, awake. I lost all motivation to play anymore, so I decided to just listen to drum and bass music and lay in bed for some reason. As I'm listening to this fast-paced music, I start to really loop out. This is so hard to describe the feeling, but I forgot what my room looked like, even though I was in my room. It was like my room was a piece of paper that had been folded in half, and I was living in the middle of it. The more I thought into this, the more my room would fold. My PC, which was on the left of me, would end up somewhere above me, then next to me, then around me. It was a massive loop, and I was starting to lose all logic left in my head. I tried turning off the music as if that was the stimulant which caused this. I tapped and tapped everywhere on my phone to try and turn it off. My phone screen was just this piece of digital thingness. I gave up, and I felt my body start to vibrate. Slow vibrations in my whole body quickly became fast vibration. I felt something squeezing my body all around until everything slowly faded into black. I'm still able to think and look around in this darkness though. This blue 2D thing of energy tries to communicate with me. In comes a pink 2D thing of energy shaped like humans, but definitely not humans at all. At first, I couldn't understand them, but then I gradually start to follow them around in this strange world I find myself in. At the time, all of this somehow felt normal. These things of energy were just as amped up as I was, vibrating really, really fast, as was I. Most of this world I fell into is a blur to me to this day, however I remember some oddly realistic situations during this trip. I remember having an end goal of some sort. If I reached this goal, I would be basically God or a very high power in a sense. I ended up waking out of this darkness and back into my room. What I'd just been through was so intense that my folded up room began to look normal. I thought the trip must have been wearing off. I get off my bed and stand up for the first time in what felt like years. As I stand up, I realise that this was a truly dumb idea. The whole room begins to start buzzing out of my vision, so I quickly lay back down on my bed. The computer screen, my phone screen, my TV all stood out in my vision. I started off not being able to see screens at all, and now it felt like that was the only thing I could see. I panic and call a childhood friend of mine. At this time, he was a crack addict and tried a lot of drugs. I still had no idea what I had consumed, so I called up to make sure I hadn't taken meth or something by any chance. I couldn't even remember the fact I put a tab on my mouth. All I knew was, I'm tweaking and I need help. He reassures me that I definitely haven't taken meth, but it may be some sort of fake acid. We talk for a while. He tries to get my mind to a more calm state, which was achieved, but I still felt a really quick vibration through my body. I decided to Google what I may have taken. I just typed into Google exactly how I felt in that exact moment. Immediately, the first thing that pops up, N-bomb overdose, teen dies, something along those lines. I start researching N-bomb as I'm tripping on it, and I was sure that 25I was exactly what I had taken. I decide to get into bed and watch some funny videos to keep my mind occupied until I slowly fall asleep. At this point, my memory becomes a bit blurred as to what actually happened. Slowly but surely, it comes to night time. I look at the time, and it reads about 1 AM, but it looks bright as day outside. I've been watching memes for a long time, I thought to myself. I look at the time again, and it's 1 PM the next fucking day. I'm still tripping absolute balls, but I'm gradually getting used to it, I guess. I call Jess up, and he's also still fried out of his head. We were these disgusting creatures who hadn't slept and were just speeding through life at this point. We have a friend who we would smoke weed with regularly. She also had been sold this N-bomb unknowingly also. We had no idea of this yet, so I asked a friend for a lift to her place to calm down a bit, and told Jess to come with. We were close enough friends to rock up at each other's houses whenever. When I arrived, it was immediately noticeable the way she had handled the trip. She said she felt so dirty and gross, but she never wants to leave this place in her head. I personally was eager to leave this place. I packed a small bong and got dropped back off home. Another night of no sleep, but I was getting super tired. The last day of the trip, everything was very peaceful in fact. The buzz had gone, I was still hallucinating, but it felt like there wasn't a thought left in my head. I felt so empty but peaceful. I kinda went through this whole day, reliving the past 2 days, and still being a bit bugged out. I knew I'd fall asleep soon though. I wasn't sure if I'd wake up. All I knew is that I'd be asleep for a while. It eventually came to the time where I could do nothing but sleep. I slept all day, woke up at night, easily went back to bed, then woke up midday the next day around 3 PM feeling empty, completely empty and devoid of anything left in my soul. For months after this trip, I was quite delusional. I started not being aware of anything around me really, as I would constantly lose track of what I'm doing and bump into random things. I became horrible at speaking, slurring words every time I said a sentence. I had this trip on my mind for months after. To be honest, after thinking back and reading up on research chemicals, I'm not even 100% sure what I had taken was 25I at all. I'm still not sure if anyone else has ever had a 3-day trip from an N-bomb. The Dead Man's Dream, a 25I-NBOMe and 25C-NBOMe trip report by a dreamer, posted to earwid.org August 10th, 2016. This experience is by far the most profound experience I've ever had. I consider myself a fairly seasoned psychonaut, and have imbibed many a mind-altering substance in my time. DMT, DPT, LSD, most of the 2C series, mushrooms, MXE, ketamine, etc. But nothing I have ever done in the past even comes close to what happened to me this night. I'd recently acquired some 25I-NBOMe and 25C-NBOMe gel tabs, with a fairly high dose in each, 1.5mg 25I, and 0.8mg 25C. I went outside and smoked a bowl with a friend and showed them my newly acquired magical gummy worms. I wasn't entirely set on trying it that night, but just kind of said, well, why not? So, due to prior experiences with 25I-NBOMe, 1.5mg gave me a fairly good yet somewhat underwhelming experience. I decided to double it this time, and at about 10:45 stuck 2 of the gel tabs under my upper lip and waited for the fun to begin, which, I must say, did not take long. 11. Mouth is mostly numb and that god-awful taste remains. Breathing feels strange. The first signs of psychedelia manifest. A general feeling of strangeness takes me. 11:15. Feelings of strangeness continue. Slight trails forming now. 11:30. Closed eye visuals really kicking in. Objects begin breathing and the world begins taking on a purple hue. 11:45. Cottonmouth from the weed earlier combined with the horrid taste of the research chemicals is getting annoying now. My walking is mostly unhindered into the kitchen to get a glass of water. At 11:47ish, I'm walking back to the living room to get on the laptop and listen to music, when things start getting downright crazy. It feels as if I'm on a boat in a storm. Everything is moving around, the walls and floor begin rippling. I have to hold myself up along the wall to make it to the couch. I go to put on some music, but find it somewhat difficult as the keyboard appears to be moving around and changing sizes. I finally succeed in getting music started. Bad idea, the noise is actually quite weird. I somehow start to become mesmerised by it, and it becomes less terrifying over time. I attempt to look stuff up on the internet, but I don't really know why, because I can barely even read the screen at this point. At 12, I feel unbelievably good, so damn happy to be honest. I'm more used to the hallucinations now, and seem to have regained my balance. I realise I forgot my water in the kitchen, and decide to go get it. I get halfway there, and decide it would also be a good time to go smoke a bowl and go back to get the weed and my phone so I can listen to music whilst burning one. Stop halfway to the kitchen again and play with the cat. At this point, I pretty much lose my ability to tell time at all. I stand by the window and look for whatever it is that my cat is staring at. As I stand there, I realise I have no idea how long I've even been standing there in the first place, or how long ago it was that I got up to get my glass of water. Things even seem to start repeating themselves. I walk towards the kitchen to get water, I'm back at the window. Again, I walk to get my water, back at the window. What the fuck is going on? I finally manage to make it to the kitchen and realise I'm way too far gone to even attempt to burn something so close to my face. So I decide to nix the weed smoking idea. I recall certain foods tasting amazing while on 25I, so I decide to eat some fruit instead. I get some kiwi out of the refrigerator and sit down on the floor to eat it because, yeah, fuck chairs. Things seem to repeat again. I get the kiwi out of the refrigerator, I sit down, it repeats again. I finish the kiwi and go to wash my hands. After washing my hands, I get engrossed watching the patterns forming on the floor tiles. I then again zone out and forget how long I've actually been standing there. I walk back to the couch and get on the laptop. I seem to have conquered my inability to read. I start looking at Facebook and high strangeness begins anew. A massive sense of deja vu washes over me. I remember all of this. I actually saw these posts months ago. The last time I did 25I-NBOMe, I saw these exact same posts. As I scroll down the page, I can predict the next post before I get to them. For the second time now, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. So the hallucinations come back en masse now. The computer seems as if it's some alien machine. Everything starts warping around, it's very hard to focus now. Purple and gold vines and snakes start growing out of the ceiling. I decide to make an attempt to listen to music again. I get my headphones out of my pocket, but cannot unravel them. Something crunches between my fingers, and a small insect walks up my arm. Then, there's thousands of them. The buzzing. Oh god, the buzzing. It's just a drug, they're not real. The buzzing then dissipates, and the insects are gone. I look around, and the vines are still there swinging about though. I see a ring of people around me. I can't see them right in front of me, they seem to be in my peripheral vision. They look like ghosts. There's a ring of ghosts standing around me chanting. Their incantations fall on deaf ears. I look at my hands and a scorpion crawls out of one and walks up my arm, across my chest, down my other arm, and finally into the other hand. Strange. Very, very strange. I realise I forgot my damn water again, and try to make it back to the kitchen. This time the journey is fraught with obstacles. The fact the obstacles aren't actually there is only a minor concern. The people sitting on my kitchen table seem friendly enough. I cannot make out the language they are speaking at all. I offer them some fruit, and they disappear. Oh, too bad. It's good fruit, they're missing out. Holy shit, I just offered real fruit to imaginary people. I get my water and go back to the couch, when a feeling of dread washes over me. Reality seems to be breaking all around me. More things repeat, and it would appear that I'm firmly stuck in a loop. The TV show that is on now doesn't seem to be conducive to having a good trip. I try to change the channel, but just cannot figure out how to make the remote work. I think I should just try and go to bed. I make it as far as the laundry room and get lost in the darkness. Abort. Mission failure. I cannot make it to the bedroom. I must go back the way I came. The return journey is perilous. When I last came through here, there was light abound, but now it is gone, and only a faint glimmer coming from the television I couldn't succeed in turning off exists. I return to the couch and lie down there. The feeling of dread remains. What is it that I'm afraid of? I fade in and out. The television seems to be repeating itself again. I'm sitting with my phone in my hand. When did I sit up? When did I get my phone? The man on the television has a phone as well. He sends a text. I get a text. It's from the guy on TV. Then the world explodes. I'm sitting with my phone in my hand. When did I sit up? When did I get my phone? The man on the television has a phone as well. He sends a text. I get a text. It's from the guy on TV. Nah, wait, didn't this just happen? I look out the window. Something streaks across the sky. The world explodes. I'm now sitting with my phone in my hand. When did I sit up? When did I get my phone? The man on the television has a phone as well. He sends a text. I get a text. It's from the guy on TV. Nah, not again. Bang. I'm now curled up on the couch. What just happened to me? I recall explosions, and the remote is lying on the floor now, broken, covered in blood. There is smoke everywhere, burning, everything's burning. I'm back on the couch. The remote is on the arm of the couch, and now the third. What the fuck is going on? Walk to the front door and look outside. Things seem to be flipping from the psychedelic amazing world to the, exploded world. I look back to the couch and the remote is on the floor broken again, when a second later it is back on the arm unscathed. Fuck this. I'm lying back down. I'll deal with the possibly broken remote tomorrow. So I'm lying on the couch again, and various visions of my demise flash before me. A sense of panic washes over me. That last one felt very real. I am lying on a road. Pain everywhere. I'm broken, I'm bleeding, I'm dying. Certain sounds start to make sense. What I recognised as snores a moment ago is actually the sound of the diesel engine of an ambulance. The paramedic stands over me, saying, "We're losing him," he says as the whine of a defibrillator fills my ears. My breaths come on rapidly now, and I feel like I'm having a seizure of sorts, when time slows to a crawl. Everything starts to reverse. The paramedic stands and backs away, the ambulance backs away, a semi backs away as I stand. I reverse back through a broken window into my house. A knife is sticking out of my midsection. I lower myself to the floor. The knife is in my hand as I rise awkwardly. In reverse, I walk back to the counter and my finger is lying on the cutting board along with a piece of fruit. I lower my hand and the finger attaches back onto its proper place. I put the knife back into the block. So now everything moves forward again. I get the knife out of the block. While cutting the fruit, I slip and take off a finger. Shock overwhelms me. Why the fuck am I cutting something up while this high? I slip on some blood and fall onto the floor. The knife stabs into my stomach. No. Why not now? I manage to make it to my feet and stumble forwards. I fall forwards and smash through the window. Rising again, I stumble forwards, ever forwards, and I am now on the road. I turn in time to see the lights and hear the horn. The truck hits me. I'm lying on the road, pain everywhere. The sprinkler across the street kicks on. The water combining with the first light of dawn makes an astoundingly beautiful rainbow when an ambulance pulls up. "We're losing him," a paramedic says as he stands over me. The words fade out as a familiar whine fills my ears. Again, in reverse, and forwards. The cycle repeats several times. When a realization grips me. All of this, everything, is all just the final sparks of a brain on the brink of death. Perception of time stretches to infinity. My whole life is occurring in the blink of a dying eye. The last time the defibrillator is brought to my chest, I feel a jolt. I'm lying on the couch. It's still dark outside. I check my phone. 3:45 a.m. For the fourth and final time, what the fuck is going on? At that point, I decided to go to bed. I was still tripping way too hard to actually sleep, so I just listened to some music and waited for daylight. I still felt quite strange most of the day, with some slight hallucinations remaining as late as 10:30 that very night. That experience has certainly stuck with me. I tried the same combo a while later, and the same feeling of dread got me once again. As the experience started to play out again, I could hear the engines roaring. I could feel the road and the pain. Thankfully though, that time, I didn't get caught in a loop, and I actually managed to break out of it and watch a movie instead of, well, you know, dying repeatedly, forever and ever. Hey guys, back at you once again with another submission from a subscriber. This one's quite interesting because the person in question, called Deter a Child, actually messaged me on my Instagram page, and they said that they found my reading of their Brugmansia trip report, which was from like 10 years ago. The one in particular was the Death and Psychic Dinosaurs one, which is easily one of the most fascinating and entertaining Brugmansia trip reports, and just trip reports in general, I guess. So yeah, buckle yourselves up for this one and we'll get stuck in. Substances taken: approximately 60 milligrams of methoxetamine, 2 tabs of 25I-NBOMe, dose unknown, and approximately 3 bottles of beer and 3 to 4 small glasses of whiskey. Age: around 23. It was supposed to be a rare night of normality. Drinking alcohol with the monkeys instead of tripping balls and watching the human zoo from the sidelines, as was my usual modus operandi at the time. But the tiger's got to hunt, the bird's got to fly, and man's got to sit and wonder why. I'll start with the original plan. Me and Kay, my girlfriend at the time, were off to catch up with her best friend T, and H, her friend or lover or something, who was visiting her from down south. We had beer and whiskey and some gig to go to. I didn't know who was playing or where we were going exactly. I was just along for the ride. We got to T's house around sundown and had a few drinks. H was a drug dealer who had brought up a large stash of mostly hallucinogenic drugs with him about 2 weeks earlier.
Over that time, he had sold or taken the majority of them, and was down to a bag of MXE and a couple of tabs of NBOMe. After about an hour of drinking and hanging out, I decided, on a whim, to take the last of H's drugs and ghost along to the gig with the others. Though both of these drugs in particular were fairly new to me, I was very experienced with hallucinogens in general, having been fascinated with them since my first mescaline trip at 17. So I took the 2 tabs and emptied the MXE into my whiskey, and left the rest to the gods. Thanks to the alcohol, the trip crept up on me very slowly. After about half an hour I was hyperkinetic and giddy. At one point, I was dancing with Kay on the balcony while tic-tacking in a circle around her on my skateboard. I remember excitedly telling stories about things that never happened, while the others ignored me and talked amongst themselves. My last memory is loudly screeching along to 5 Years by David Bowie, riding the rising vibes higher and higher into oblivion. I understand there's about an hour missing from my memory. All I've heard about it was from Kay, who said I dragged her into T's bedroom to cuddle with her on the bed. Apparently I gave her a heartfelt speech about how much she meant to me. She was insulted to find out I didn't remember any of it. She also said that we tried to leave with the others, but upon reaching the long, winding and dimly lit set of stairs that went from T's house down to the road, I simply said, "Nope," and turned around. My next memory is sitting shirtless on a chair on the balcony in the light rain, with Kay sitting cross-legged on the ground beside me holding my hand. I was completely disoriented and confused, and had the sense that I had broken something or did something bad. I was asking Kay a lot of questions like, where are we, and what's happening, while she patiently explained the fundamentals of reality to me. Though I was still experiencing reality through my senses, I felt completely disconnected, like I was inhabiting another's body. There was no thought process I was aware of behind my words, and a lot of the things I said were news to me. Kay explained that T and H had gone to the gig, and that she had stayed behind to look after me because I was completely out of my mind. I became vaguely aware of the situation, and insisted I was ready to go to the gig. Kay convinced me that it was a bad idea, and that it was time to walk home. She helped me put my shirt back on. I grabbed my board, and we set off. I wasn't aware of how distorted my senses were when we reached the stairs. I clearly saw ascending stairs and tried to walk up them, resulting in me crashing into the side of the wall of the house, which then felt like the ground, before trying to claw my way up the stairs, which was now a wall. Eventually Kay helped me get back to the top of the stairs, and then we were back on the balcony, waiting for me to come to my senses a bit for another go at the stairs. I'm not sure how long we stayed there for, but at some point I was lucid enough for Kay to trust me walking down the stairs. Had to walk down them sideways, holding the guardrail. Our house was only about a 10-minute walk away through a quiet suburb, but the change of environment was overwhelming to me. It was more uncertainty than fear. I devolved back to my earlier state of total confusion, asking Kay basic questions about where we were and what was going on. I assumed this was sometime after midnight since there were very few cars about. But whenever a car did go past, it would completely negate any process Kay had made of explaining what was going on to me, and I would be straight back to not knowing what the fuck was happening. I remember at one point being completely surrounded by cars at an intersection, all shouting and circling us in a cacophony of headlights and voices. In reality, 2 cars had pulled up slightly ahead of us and had a conversation about which route to take before driving off. I can also remember complaining that the grass was too loud, and Kay telling me to block my ears. It sounded to me like screeching cicadas, and I'd forgotten her advice before my fingers reached my ears. Probably because some fucker had the audacity to drive past us and shatter my reality. We went straight to bed when we got home, and I finally got to indulge in my visuals. It was so immersive it felt more like dreaming than tripping. While spooning Kay, I envisioned her as a torrent of water and myself as Aquarius, providing water to an ancient city. At another point, I was a bookshelf and Kay was a sleeping book, breathing deeply and occasionally chasing rabbit dreams, wagging her tail slowly. I existed in this state for what felt like hours without questioning it. I was just like, yep, I'm a bookshelf. I also saw what I imagined to be hell. It was an endless, desolate landscape of dusky canyons and dunes, passing by slowly, with a set of guitar strings across the middle being played by a weevil, who I assumed was Satan, maintaining hell's existence with its slow, disjointed plucking. Sometime during the night I had to get up for a piss. I managed to feel my way to the bathroom along the walls in the dark. But when I turned the light on, the sudden kaleidoscope of visions overwhelmed me and left me functionally blind. The visions were constantly shifting and composed mostly of life forms scrambling over and through one another. Finding the toilet was clearly a fool's mission, so I quickly gave up and pissed on the floor in the middle of the bathroom, figuring I'd just have to deal with it tomorrow. Back in the bedroom, I stumbled around a bit trying to find the bed, knocking a few things over and making a lot of noise in the process. This woke up Kay, who sleepily guided me back to bed and put my headphones on me, and put on some music before going back to sleep. The song was Riders on the Storm by The Doors. Disturbingly though, Jim Morrison's voice sounded exactly like Hank Hill's, pronouncing the H in words with WH. What? I got worried that I had permanently changed Jim Morrison's voice and switched off the music. To this day I still hear Hank Hill croning in certain Doors songs, and now you will too. I don't know if I slept that night. The visuals were so vivid that they could have been dreams. The only one I remember after pissing on the floor was of a vast farmland with two Kiwi stereotypical farmers discussing cattle and such. After a while, one of them asked the other how their trip was going. The other responded dismissively, with something like, "Oh yeah, nah, just a whole lot of squibbity squap in the ice cream, bunch of hibbity hoo-ha yourself." The other responded, "Yeah mate, yeah, just a bunch of bloody dribbling giblets, blabbing and bibbering all over the place." And their exchange gradually degraded into maddening glossolalia, accompanied by weird wiggling fingers, as if imitating tentacles. I was born into a farming family, so I feel like that was a weird representation of my escape into psychedelia and madness. When the sun was up, I got up and cleaned my piss off the floor and ate some food, before returning to bed and immediately falling back to sleep. To this day she has no idea I pissed on the floor. I'll send this trip report to her. Better she hears it from me. Overall, the trip was insane and surreal, yet strangely calming. I think the detachment of the MXE smoothed out the sharp edges of the NBOMe trip, while the psychedelic lights of the NBOMe illuminated the blackness of the dissociative MXE hole. Good, safer alternatives to deliriants like Datura, but also very overwhelming and disabling. I was lucky to have Kay to take care of me and make the sober decisions I couldn't, as well as put up with my shit without losing her temper at me. But at the end of the day, Tiger got to sleep, Bird got to land, and man got to tell himself he understands. Becoming a God with my boyfriend. A 25I-NBOMe report from the Psychonaut Wiki. Hey there. This might be long. Anyways, somewhere I guess 2 to 4 hours in, I literally couldn't understand the figures on my wristwatch for a long while, so I don't know for sure. I had a loop in which I perceived my boyfriend and I to be two Indian gods. I'm pretty much an atheist, by the way. Maybe more agnostic nowadays. And they were creating the known universe over and over again in some kind of mutual joke. And every time we would cast ourselves in it and experience it till it ended, and we would end up together on the same plane. That was in fact the bed. And every time it got more and more fucked up. I think this, or the real universe, belonged somewhere in the mid-level of fucked upness. Until eventually when a universe ended, one of us would want it to stop because the joke had gone too far. But the other would just laugh, start a new one and go into it. The other one having to follow. Love is a powerful thing, you know. At some point it became like a competition, and I realised one of us would have to give up in order for it to stop. Things in those universes have apparently gotten pretty bad by that point. I decided it would have to be me, and I knew that to do that I would have to die. At this point I was totally disconnected from reality. It was all real in my mind. So I curled up at the edge of the bed and told my boyfriend that I'm tired and I couldn't do it anymore. Funny, he actually thought I meant the trip. He had no idea what I was hallucinating. And I felt myself slowly slipping away while my boyfriend is holding me in his arms, crying. I guess in reality he wasn't crying, but he did hold me. There was a terrible pain in my lower stomach, and it got worse and worse till it was all I could perceive. And then it wasn't even pain anymore. Just something that got larger and larger, and then I don't really remember what happened. I explained it myself as just pure experience, from every point of view in the universe. It wasn't good nor bad, it just was. There was some kind of throbbing white thing, I don't want to say light, that was everything. That I later thought of as a singularity, like before the Big Bang. After dunno how much time, probably not too long because my boyfriend would get worried, I just woke up. I was pretty shaken up. I really didn't expect anything like that, and it took me a while to remember what the fuck is going on and that I was on drugs and back in my own single point of view. Yeah, that shit fucked me up even more for a bit. But a week after that I smoked some changa, which really blew my mind and kind of fixed most of the mindfuck. Yay, drugs. I hope this was helpful in some way. Keep on the good work. This was my first N-bomb trip. The Doom Train. A 25I-NBOMe and Salvia divinorum at 25 times extract trip report by M. Well into a pretty heavy 2CI NBOMe trip, I decided to take a teensy tiny little hit of 25 times Salvia that was bestowed upon me through some fortune. Exhaling, I laid back and felt all the oncomings of this. Immediately I noticed the intense sharp geometric and orderly visuals of the NBOMe begin to morph and round off at the edges, becoming more animated, organic and fluid, and went much further in depth. There was a real life and meaning to it now, aside from pretty colours and shapes. Along with this I felt the presence of someone, or more than one maybe. Some unseen hand unfolding and revealing various pages of this reality for me. It was like a circus joker figuresque thing in the corners of my perception, manipulating the world in front of me, turning the pages. I started feeling I was in a great festival of life in all the universe. From out of the corners of my perception I felt the warm company of others dancing, morphing and frolicking around me. There was a very feminine presence to it all. The soul of womanly things surrounding me, welcoming me to this world. I giggled and felt joyous. I sat in this experience, not feeling too out of place, as otherworldly as it all seemed. Slowly the salvia wore off and I was back into my N-bomb world. Now the N-bomb world didn't seem so intense or deep as I had thought, compared to this little taste of salvia world. I just had my first trip within a trip. Then I decided to take a normal hit and hold it in for a good time. Now I don't know what I was expecting, but this was beyond anything I've ever thought possible as a state of being. Being conscious and witnessing what I did will forever have a lasting impact on my life. This is my interpretation. Putting this to words to the best of my ability, which oddly won't be that difficult compared to trying to describe, say, LSD or mushroom trips. Exhale. Now I'm expecting something similar to what I just felt earlier, but with a little more zing, so to speak. God, I was wrong. So wrong. Time freezes. I realise something very big is about to happen. Very big. Oh no, I thought. Too much. I knew it. This was it. Titanic was about to hit the iceberg. My perception of sound went to flat silence, and all I heard or sensed was this massive machine approaching from far away. And by massive I mean Unicron planet devouring massive. Just being aware of it is so big, felt like it sucked all the air out of the room. The vacuum created on a beach before a tsunami. A low rumbling. It rumbled with the force of a great machine that I could feel shaking me. The shaking felt physically real. It approached from the distance, making whirring and whizzing noises here and there. It was so big. I could feel this machine was sweeping a route, like a Zamboni or a lawnmower. It got extremely close, then whirred off along its path into the great distance, then coming back in a swelling ferocity. To and fro it went. Luckily I was a little prepped for this from reading some great stories of salvia experiences, and I realised that I was about to be shredded up once the machine made its pass over me. But still, reading about it simply cannot prepare you. I waited somewhat afraid now, only frightened at how truly serious and big this felt. What will it do for me? This machine was mowing the lawn around my mind, and it would soon mow over my mind entirely. Everything in front of me in the physical space began to push towards me, clutter up like an invisible hand was mashing my room into me. I stared at one spot on my wall, by a speaker and a can of beer sitting on top of it, and waited for it. I felt this machine shredding right past me. I was afraid to look anywhere else and just waited for it to hit me. Then my turn came. It unzipped the seams of my reality. I saw the cracks open up in the walls and little faces peering back from behind the scenes. The can of beer and speaker became an intersect of where this machine had sliced through, and reality peeled back from floor to ceiling. It was like a knife tearing open a curtain. There were cuts and slashes all over my walls. It was so vivid. Just like seeing a knife tearing through a curtain, but with more fluidity than cloviness. The beer can had a face now like a cartoon. It was alive. All the objects and anything near these torn edges had faces and life to it. These little cartoon characters. I literally saw the fabric of reality rip open and the borders around it, and it came to life. And when I looked into the other side, it was almost like, oops, you weren't supposed to see that. No data written here yet. I wasn't sure, but looking into or out of my room, I saw these puppeteers holding my room together. These chameleon-like camouflage ninja people posed and stretched out on all sides of the walls and corners, holding it together in disguise, like they were supporting a front or a hoax. When I noticed them, they shape-shifted and acrobated themselves elsewhere and the room disappeared. This was a very brief and bizarre moment. I had no sense of inside or outside. Was I looking in at this, or was I looking out? It seemed like I was seeing the universe's safeguard of experiencing technical difficulties, be back with you shortly, while the rest of the program loaded up. Looking back at this specific part though, I think it was just experiencing a space beyond my 3 dimensions, and couldn't quite come to terms with what it was, and I was witnessing the architects of these constructs move about, like I was backstage watching the acts play out. The shredding continued, or so I thought. It was just gone suddenly. I was expecting it to get stronger and more intense, but it levelled off and faded out peacefully. Going back a sec, it's important to note, during this shredding phenomena, I could feel a very unique but distinct burning sensation on all the edges this machine was cutting, like open wounds. It felt like a fire to me, but not painful, just a fiery feeling in evenly cut folds. Then I realised that was it. I'm in Salvia world now. All in. It wasn't that bad after all. It was just that serious impending onset of something huge about to happen, that took me aback. But once I was there, I felt okay. I also felt taxed, like I'd reached the top of a mountain after a strenuous climb. I lay at the peak, exhausted and overwhelmed. I can't really describe much of the rest. I saw all the fantastic inner workings of the nature of reality, all the little souls and people that work all the magic like a circus act. These creatures were very clown-like, nimble, cartwheeling and flipping and flowing here and there. I couldn't keep up. They seemed shadowy and elusive. I got a glimpse of all this, then the high receded. The entire time I just kept saying, wow, oh my god, to myself over and over. I had no idea. Wow, I didn't know it could be so big. At this point I was just in too much awe to try to make sense of anything. I was just happy to know I got through it. I called this strong force a machine, mainly because of the sounds and vibrations I was getting from it. It was like a hedge clipper or buzzsaw. It had some very calculated and mechanised notions to it, but at the same time it was just simply a huge surging force of energy. It was a very defining threshold between realities. One would have to actually experience it to understand how truly massive it feels. It also seemed finite though. I could sense its largeness, which meant it had a size, right? Maybe for another time. I know a lot of higher level trips describe being shot out or blasted out into space, whatever decorative words you choose. But for me, it felt like it all came to me. I didn't go anywhere. I was here the whole time, but the rest of it blasted into me, or my space I know as reality. One of the most amazing experiences in my life so far.